They expected a diplomat. The docking ring of Halcyon 9 glittered with ceremonial light, golden hollow banners, gravity smoothed to perfection, air perfumed for species with lungs, gills, or something in between. Delegates of the Galaxy Compact floated, slithered, and strode into position, rehearsing greetings that had been refined for centuries. First contact with humanity would be historic, controlled, harmless. Then the outer airlock alarm screamed. The doors ground open late, 6 minutes late, which already felt like an insult, and something heavy scraped across the deck. Not cargo. Not machinery. A body. The Vraxian warlord's corpse slid into the chamber, armor split open like a gutted animal, purple-black blood hissing where it touched the polished alloy floor. The smell hit next, copper, ozone, and burned meat. Several delegates recoiled on instinct. One fainted. Another triggered a defense reflex and had to be stunned by its own guards. Behind the corpse came the human. He was smaller than most of them had imagined. No exoskeleton. No ceremonial uniform. Just a long, scorched coat, boots worn to the sole, and a face carved with old damage, scars layered over scars, like history written by knives. One eye was swollen nearly shut. Blood soaked the bandage around his ribs. He looked tired in a way that suggested rest had become optional years ago. He let go of the corpse, and it hit the deck with a final, wet thud. "Sorry I'm late," the human said. The universal translator rendered his voice cleanly, but it couldn't soften the tone. Gravel and smoke. The kind of voice that had shouted over artillery and didn't bother whispering anymore. Traffic. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then the Vraxian delegation exploded in sound, mandibles snapping, throat sacs inflating, translator nodes flashing red as overlapping accusations poured out. Murder. Violation of sovereign space. Terrorist. Primitive savage. The human stood there and waited, fishing a cigarette from his coat and lighting it without asking permission, inside a sealed station that had banned open flame for 3,000 years. The Supreme Arbiter finally asserted control. The ancient being hovered forward, its translucent mass rippling with internal light, 1,000 eyes focusing on the human at once. "Human," it intoned, voice layered and echoing. "You stand before the Galaxy Compact during a sacred proceeding. You have committed an act of contract fulfillment," the human interrupted. That alone sent a shockwave through the chamber. No one interrupted the Arbiter. Ever. The human jerked his chin toward the corpse. "Your warlord here hired me. Paid well, too. Problem is, he broke the agreement. Tried to sell my location to the Celt Syndicate after the job was done." He took a drag from the cigarette, exhaled slowly. "I don't do refunds." Silence fell, thick and wrong. The Vraxian delegates froze. Their frills flattened. A few eyes darted toward the Arbiter, not in outrage but fear. That detail did not go unnoticed. "You assassinated a Compact-sanctioned warlord," the Arbiter said carefully. The human shrugged, a motion that sent a fresh ripple of pain across his face. "He assassinated my trust first." Security units began to move, tall, armored constructs bristling with weapons tuned to suppress anything from plasma-based lifeforms to energy beings. The human noticed immediately. Humans always did. "Before you make this worse," he said, "you might want to hear why I'm really here." The Arbiter hesitated. "A mistake, in hindsight. You keep touching Earth," the human went on. "Not directly. You're cleverer than that. You fund pirates. You arm border clans. You embargo relief shipments and call it market correction. You starve colonies and blame weather." He stepped forward, boots crunching in dried alien blood. "You thought we wouldn't notice? Or that we wouldn't understand?" One of the elder delegates scoffed. "Your species has not achieved faster-than-light parity. You are politically insignificant." The human smiled. It was not a friendly expression. "Yeah," he said. "That's what you got wrong." The first shot came from a security unit. It never landed. The human moved as the chamber erupted into chaos. Something small and metallic bounced once, twice, then the world turned white. The blast was surgical, contained, designed for enclosed spaces. Half the security line went down in pieces. The rest never got the chance to recalibrate. What followed was not a battle. It was a lesson. The human flowed through the chamber like bad news, weapons appearing from places scanners hadn't flagged. He fired, struck, vanished, reappeared. He knew where to hit: joints, sensory clusters, pressure sacks. Species-specific kills, executed without hesitation. Screams echoed in a dozen frequencies. The Arbiter tried to flee. The human was already there. He vaulted, grabbed a trailing tendril, and slammed a device into the Arbiter's core. The ancient being convulsed, lights flickering wildly, before going still. Dead. Something that hadn't happened in recorded history. The shooting stopped. Bodies littered the chamber. Delegates, guards, legends reduced to meat and wreckage. Smoke hung in the air. Emergency lights pulsed red, struggling to compensate for the damage. The human stood alone. He reloaded with practiced ease, wincing as he straightened, then looked around at the survivors. Those few who had been smart enough to freeze, to hide, to not draw attention. "No," he said, voice calm again, almost conversational. "We can talk." No one spoke. He sighed. "Figures." He turned toward a central hollow console, blood dripping from his sleeve onto the controls, and keyed in a transmission. A human face appeared on screens across the chamber. Older, uniformed, eyes sharp. "Package delivered," the human said. "They made it messy." The face on the screen stared at the devastation. "Copy that, Crow." Crow. The name rippled through alien databases in real time, too late to matter. "You're clear to exfil," the voice continued. Crow glanced back at the chamber, at the corpse he dragged in, at the shattered illusion of a peaceful first meeting. "Nah," he said. "I'll stick around. They need to understand something." He faced the remaining delegates. "You wanted to meet humanity," he told them. "This is what you sent for." Somewhere far away, deep in compact space, threat assessment algorithms quietly updated. Humanity was reclassified. From non-threatening to existential risk. The Galaxy Compact told itself a comforting lie. They said Elias Crow was an anomaly, a statistical outlier, a broken edge case produced by a violent, immature species. One man. One bad day. An accident of evolution and circumstance. Empires had survived worse. So they buried Halcyon 9. They sealed the recordings, purged the witnesses, and classified the Arbiter's death as a containment failure. Publicly, first contact with humanity was declared postponed due to cultural incompatibility. Privately, the Compact voted, unanimously, for a corrective action. Not war. Demonstration. 3 coalition fleets jumped into the Sol system without warning. They did not target Earth directly. That would have been provocative. Instead, they struck the soft edges, orbital shipyards, lunar power arrays, the outer research habitats where civilians lived under the assumption that nobody would ever bother them. The first station died quietly. Its last transmission was a child asking why the stars were getting brighter. On Luna, in a low-gravity bar carved into regolith older than human history, Elias Crow watched the feeds without blinking. The place smelled like cheap alcohol and recycled air. Around him sat people who didn't wear uniforms anymore, because uniforms reminded them of things they preferred buried. A pilot with shaking hands. A medic who flinched at loud sounds. A woman who'd once hacked a planetary defense grid using a coffee maker in spite. No one cried out. No one panicked. They'd all seen this before, just with different flags. "So," the pilot said quietly, "that's the message." Crow nodded. He took a sip of whiskey, then set the glass down untouched. "Yeah. That's them being polite. They think this'll scare Earth," the medic muttered. Crow let out a soft, humorless laugh. "They don't know Earth." On the screens, analysts argued. Politicians shouted. Emergency sessions were called. The Compact waited for retaliation, missiles, fleets, grandstanding. It didn't come. Instead, something far more unsettling happened. Earth went quiet. No declarations. No threats. No speeches broadcast across the stars. Just a sudden, coordinated silence, as if an entire species had taken a breath at the same time. Then Crow's comm chirped. A single word appeared on the cracked display. Contract. He stood up. Across human space, similar messages arrived. Not through official channels. Through old numbers, forgotten backdoors, favors owed and never repaid. Veterans who hadn't fired a weapon in years felt the itch return. Freighters changed course. Cargo manifests quietly rewrote themselves. The compact never saw the counterattack coming, because it wasn't aimed at them. It was aimed inside them. Crow's ride was a rusted waste hauler with counterfeit transponders and a reactor that whined like a dying animal. It was invisible in the way only trash ever was. He boarded the Coalition Command Nexus hidden inside a debris cloud, drifting close enough that their sensors filtered it out automatically. Humans had learned something valuable on Earth. Nobody watches the garbage. Crow came in through the waste locks, boots splashing in things that had once been food, bodies, or ideas. He moved slowly at first, feeling the place out. Learning its rhythms. Listening to the hum of power and the confidence of an empire that believed itself untouchable. Then he started breaking things. Not loudly. Not yet. Life support glitches on one deck. A navigation error on another. A junior officer vanished in a maintenance corridor, their death so clean the sensors never registered a struggle. Crow left no signatures the compact understood. Human tech didn't announce itself. It adapted. Panic crept in sideways. The Nexus went on alert. Security doubled. Officers snapped at each other. Sleep cycles were skipped. That was when Crow sped up. He hit the communications core during a shift change, severing real-time links between the fleets. He sabotaged the command AI, not destroying it, just teaching it to lie. False confirmations. Delayed orders. Small, fatal misunderstandings. A cruiser misjumped and tore itself apart. Another fired on a friendly escort. The Coalition began losing ships without ever seeing an enemy. That was when the Admiral understood. This isn't an invasion. The towering, armored being growled to its aides. It's a hunt. Crow watched the Admiral from the shadows of the command deck, memorizing posture, breathing, guard patterns. When he finally stepped into the light, weapons lowered, the Admiral laughed, a deep, booming sound meant to reassure itself. You are one human, it said. Even if you kill me, your species loses. Crow tilted his head. No. He raised his wrist and activated the burst transmitter. Across the galaxy, files unlocked. Compact bank records. Black site locations. Proof of manufactured famines, proxy genocides, sterilized colonies. Information Earth had been collecting quietly for decades, waiting for the right moment. This isn't about winning, Crow continued softly. It's about showing. The Admiral's eyes widened as incoming alerts flooded the room. Crow stepped closer. You wanted an example. He pulled the trigger. The Nexus went dark. Back in the Sol system, Earth's silence ended, not with weapons fire, but with a data dump so devastating it fractured alliances overnight. Member species turned on each other. Old grudges resurfaced. The compact's moral authority collapsed in hours. Crow limped back to his hauler, bleeding again, exhaustion finally clawing through the adrenaline. As the ship drifted away, alarms screaming behind him, he allowed himself a thin smile. They had tried to scare humanity. Instead, they had reminded it how much damage one angry man, and a very patient species, could do. And the galaxy had only seen the beginning. The compact sent envoys next. Diplomatic teams, carefully vetted, selected for their charm, their intelligence, their ability to negotiate. They came with gifts, with apologies polished to perfection, with offers of trade, of peace, of interstellar recognition. They expected gratitude. They got Elias Crow. He didn't rise to meet them. He sat, low-backed chair, one boot on the table, cigarette smoke curling like venom in zero-G. Around him, holographic displays showed casualty reports, stolen data, intercepted communications, the unvarnished truth of the Compact's atrocities. They flinched. They whispered. They assumed he was bluffing. They were wrong. "You'll forgive me if I don't shake hands," Crow said, voice calm but edged with something lethal. "I've killed more of your kind in the last 6 months than your fleets have killed humans in a century. And that's just me. Just one human. Don't take it personally." The lead envoy, a plumed, multi-limbed creature whose species measured worth by bone length and blood purity, opened its mouth. Crow anticipated it, leaning forward slightly, a predator's smile curling across his scarred face. A single twitch, and the envoy's translator implant shorted out. The creature slumped unconscious. Silence hung heavier than vacuum. Crow let it happen. They all understood this was the language humans spoke best, demonstrated, not explained. But revenge had a gravity all its own. Crow had learned something darker during the data raids. The Compact had eradicated a human colony years before, sterilizing every man, woman, and child with cold, bureaucratic precision. They had written it off as a plague. A quiet footnote in their endless archives. Crow didn't go back to diplomacy. Not this time. He vanished. They hunted him, of course. Fleets scoured sectors, patrols patrolled sectors, fleets pursued him through debris clouds, asteroid belts, and uncharted warp corridors. None caught him. Some joined him. Species tired of compact oppression found in him not a monster, but a symbol. He became a shadow in the galaxy. A whisper. A nightmare. Entire command structures collapsed around him, not because he fought them all, but because he fought them the way humans always did, unpredictably, patiently, and in ways the enemy could never fully understand. Finally, the Compact's most secret archive awaited him on a dead world, buried beneath ash and ice. Guardians, ancient and loyal, waited. Crow fought through them. One by one, he dismantled the defenses, exploiting the minutiae of alien physiology and machine design with the meticulous patience of someone who had studied survival and death since childhood. By the time he reached the core, he was bleeding, broken, slower. But he was unstoppable. Inside, the archive held everything Earth needed: proof of the Compact's crimes, of their manipulation, of the sterilized colonies, of the economic blockades, of genocides thinly veiled as accidents. Crow transmitted it across every human channel simultaneously. Then he sat. Let himself bleed. Let himself laugh. A low, ragged sound, part exhaustion, part dark amusement. "This is for the children," he whispered to empty corridors, to ghosts, to the stars themselves. Hours later, a rescue team arrived, human, alien, a combination forged in secrecy and necessity. They found him alive, barely, but smiling. By the end of the year, the Compact had collapsed. Alliances fractured. Power structures crumbled. Information warfare had toppled fleets. Humanity had not invaded. They had simply reminded the galaxy why no one should underestimate a species that had survived itself. Elias Crow walked away, leaving legends and corpses behind, carrying only the satisfaction of a single human truth: revenge, when patient, precise, and personal, always leaves a mark. And the galaxy learned something far more terrifying than human fleets. One human could start a war, end a war, and rewrite history without ever raising a proper flag. The Compact never underestimated humanity again. Because now they knew the truth. Humans didn't fight wars to win. Humans fought wars to prove they could survive, no matter the cost. And one angry man, one patient, methodical, unrelenting man, was enough to bring the greatest empire in the galaxy to its knees. The stars themselves trembled. Elias Crow smiled. And humanity waited, always waiting, always watching. History would call it First Contact. Humans called it Tuesday. By then, the Galaxy Compact had learned to measure humanity differently, not in fleets, not in colonies, not in treaties, but in sheer unpredictability and lethal patience. They learned that a single human could unravel decades of meticulous planning, topple empires with a whisper, and leave survivors questioning every assumption they'd ever held. Crow had retired. A small, backwater moon somewhere beyond map space, far from fleets, far from politics, far from anyone expecting him to exist. He tended a modest plot of land, watered plants that might be edible, fixed a water pump with a wrench that was almost too large for human hands. The scars remained, on his face, his hands, his soul, but he was slower now, softer, almost human in the way someone who has seen too much becomes. One evening, as the twin suns bled into the horizon, an alien child approached him. Small, curious, a species with eyes too many for comfort and a mouth full of sharp little teeth. "Are humans really that scary?" the child asked, voice quivering with both fear and awe. Crow squinted, smoking a hand-rolled cigarette, letting the smoke curl between them like a protective veil. He looked at the child, then at the dying suns, then at the patch of soil in front of them. "No," he said finally, voice low but steady. "We're worse. Because humans didn't need empires to dominate. They didn't need fleets to enforce law. They didn't need alliances to survive. Humans simply endured, adapted, and when cornered, devastated everything in their path with ingenuity, patience, and a kind of cruelty the galaxy had never encountered before." He took a long drag, exhaled, and added, "And when we decide something needs fixing, well, that's when everyone else learns a lesson they won't forget." Far above, the stars twinkled with stories of the compact's collapse, of fleets dissolved into mercenary work, of secrets exposed and wars avoided because no species dared to challenge humanity again. Crow smiled faintly. Because the galaxy didn't understand humans. They thought they were just a weak, backward species with fragile bodies and fragile governments. They had been wrong. Humanity didn't need to conquer the stars. The stars learned to leave humanity alone. And the aliens? They never forgot the lesson. Not Crow. Not the thousands like him. Not the quiet, patient, deadly resolve of a species that had survived every calamity it had ever faced. Because once a human has lived through war, betrayal, and the collapse of everything familiar, the galaxy quickly learns, underestimate them at your peril. And in that silence, that final, uneasy peace, Crow sat back on his porch, smoking, listening to alien night sounds that should have terrified him but didn't. He'd won. Humanity had survived. And sometimes, just sometimes, he thought about the galaxy, fragile, proud, arrogant, and still believing it could contain humanity. He smiled again. And the stars remembered. Humanity remembered too. And the galaxy? It learned to fear what it didn't understand. Because humans were not just survivors. Humans were inevitability. And Elias Crow, one man among billions, had just proven it.